Hi everyone, my name is Tierney. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making some bread. It is a basic recipe for Italian urban cheese bread that I found on Pinterest, but I just do it as if it's normal bread, so I don't add the cheese and I don't add the Italian herb at the end of it, which is really the only difference from it being normal bread pretty much. I'm not gonna lie, I'm having to remake this because at one point I forgot that I was breaking this recipe in half, so I added too much flour. Oh, and I just made a mess. So, I'll have this recipe linked down in the description, but basically it is just water, which I'm doing warm water, and I'm also breaking the recipe in half because we just don't need that much bread. It's just me and my husband, and then also we are moving soon, so I don't want to make a crap ton of bread. So basically for this recipe I'm doing half, so 1 1/8 cup of water and then half of a tablespoon of active dry yeast. I'm using the Fleischmann's active dry yeast, whichever however you say it, and the original. That jar is empty. I'm using the rest of this one right now. So here's my half tablespoon of active dry yeast, and this just gets whisked for a minute and then rests for 8 to 10 minutes. Okay, so now I'm just going to let it rest for, I usually do 10 minutes, and then if it's not as frothy as I would like it, I let it sit a little longer, just because I think it's just the dry yeast that I use, that or the temperature of the water, I'm not sure. It usually works either way overall, but I'm just gonna go ahead and let it rest for 10 minutes, maybe 12 if it needs to, and we'll get back to you. Well, it's been 15 minutes and it's not frothy, but I'm just gonna move on anyways and hope it works. All right, I've made this recipe before. It usually doesn't ever actually froth up. Usually there's at least some bubbles, but it's not even doing that this time. Whatever, we'll just continue and see what happens, I guess. Worst case scenario, it just doesn't work. All right, so next it asks for, well, I'm doing, because I'm breaking in half, 1 teaspoon of salt and 3/4 tablespoon of sugar. So I'm gonna put that in there, try to get all of it. Okay. And then 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Okay, and then it says to stir for 1 minute before you start adding flour. Okay, so I'm gonna start adding in flour. For the original, if it's not broken in half, it says for the total amount of flour for the recipe should be between 5.5 to 6 cups. So I'm gonna add about 1.5 to 2 cups before I switch to the dough hook. Okay, I'm gonna let that mix almost completely. And I do have one of these too. It's hard to see. It's a little guard for the bowl. I have one of these too. There we go. It's a guard for the bowl for when I need it. Okay, so that was 1 cup total now. Here's 1.5. And it's looking like it's getting to where I can switch it to the dough hook, which is right here. So I'm gonna unlock this, let it kind of get off of the whisk as much as I can get it to. Turn that off before I make a big old mess. Okay. Get that off. Okay. So I'm just gonna kind of get some of this flour off the side that's not getting hit yet. That way it can get mixed in. Okay. Add that. Lock it. And this will make 2 cups total. Starting to form an actual ball now, so it should start getting the sides better too. There it goes. Okay, and based off how this is looking, I'm thinking maybe just 1 more half cup. This makes 3. I'm going to add the guard because it's starting to fling some flour. Yeah, so I'm going to let it try to pick up as much of this flour as it can before I see if I need to add any more. If it looks good, then I will take it out to knead it. And kneading it's only about a minute. So, okay, so yeah, I'm gonna add just a little bit more, maybe just about 1/4 of a cup. I'm filling it to the halfway, but just gonna do about half of that because it is still pretty sticky on the bottom, but overall it looks good. So I did about 3 1/4. See, that's where I like it, where it's kind of starting to just break up in the bowl. So I'm gonna get this off of here, get a little bit of flour on my hands so I can get that off the hook. Yeah, see, it's still pretty, well, you can't see it. It's still sticky, but it's not overly sticky. It's at a pretty good consistency to be able to knead it. So, going to scoot this back flour my surface with my more so clean hand. Oh, just spilled flour all over my phone. That's awesome. Okay, spread that out some. I'm actually gonna kind of get it ways over. I'm just making a big old mess. While I have that on my fingers, I'm just gonna kind of break off this super sticky dough, and then it'll end up sticking into the dough whenever I get it out of the bowl. Okay, so now I got my bowl with my dough. I'm going to get some more flour on my hands. Try to get as much out of here as I can, because it does stick to the bottom pretty good. But overall, yeah, this dough feels really good, nice and soft, slightly sticky still. Okay, got pretty much all of it, it's good enough. Okay, so I got my dough now, just gonna knead it for a minute. Kneading, you wanna always bring it towards you and push it down. Trying to pick up as much of this flour as you can with it. If it feels pretty sticky still after you've kneaded it for a minute, just go ahead and add a little bit more flour and maybe knead it just a little bit longer, because it should be nice and soft, but you don't want it to be overly sticky when it's done. Feel like it's still, I'm just gonna try to scoot this flour in here and just gonna add a little bit more on top. Try to knead that in there, because it'll start to feel fine, but then you start to get some of that dough from the center getting towards the outside, and then it'll start to feel overly sticky again. Okay, so I got my dough here, trying to get it into a nice little ball. It feels just about perfect. It's okay if it has cracks like this in it. It's not gonna be a big deal overall, because this isn't gonna be the last time you shape it. Okay. So now I have a bowl here, and this part you don't have to do, but I like to. I just take a little bit of olive oil and pour it into the bowl and kind of just let it spread around. Just gonna grab a paper towel and kind of get it mixed all over the bowl. And I try to get it pretty high up because the yeast does expand, obviously. So just get a good coating, and then I just pat the actual dough down with the olive oil. This just kind of helps it, in my opinion, just keep it a little bit more moist through the process. So yeah, so there is that, and just gonna plop her down. I always just cover it with a rag. Just let it rise for about an hour, 2 hours. You could probably leave it a little longer if you have to, but it's just suggested for an hour. So I'm gonna let that rest for an hour, and we'll come back to you whenever it is time. Okay, so I got my dough in my loaf pan. I'm going to take my dough, which is nice and fluffy, and I'm just gonna put it inside here. Okay, so I got parchment paper in my pan, and I'm going to use some non-stick spray. I just use the original non-stick as shown here. You don't have to use that, you can just use butter. So I'm just going to get this in there and push it down to where it fits the pan. Don't worry if you can't get it right away to the shape you want it, because you're just going to let it rest for 15 minutes, and then you'll be able to morph it a little bit more. It'll be able to stretch better. So just keep doing this until it is morphed.
So I have this morphed to the pan as much as I can now, and I'm just gonna let it rest for 15 minutes uncovered. Okay, so my oven has preheated to 375 and my dough has risen. I'm going to go ahead and stick it in the oven for 15 minutes. It originally asked for 20 to 25 minutes, but because I did not do as much dough, I'm going to just do 15 and see where it's at. Okay, I am back with my fully cooked bread. I ended up cooking it for 19 minutes. The top is not as white or is not as brown as I would have liked it, but if you want it to be more brown, then you can just egg wash it. But the bottom, as you can see, is nice and brown, perfect, and it is also pretty squishy, which is how I like it. Not squishy, but fluffy, you know, but yeah, it looks really good. As far as I can tell on the outside, it's cooked all the way through. I'm gonna cut into it and check the inside to see if I need to cook it any longer while the oven's still hot. And so far it looks good. There's a few dough spots in the center, just like a few little dots. Not bad though. Let me cut this off and then I will show it to you. So yeah, it'll focus. And just a few little darker spots, but it's not bad at all. Yeah. And then here is the actual loaf. It has a few tiny spots too, but nothing crazy. So it looks good overall. I'm excited. I'm just gonna stick that back in there because I'm saving this for when my hubby gets home so we can enjoy it together. Okay, I'm just gonna grab a rag real quick so I can cover it and keep it warm. Alright, I'm just trying to keep it warm because my husband's on his way home and I'm going to make some sandwiches or something for us when he gets here with the fresh bread. Hopefully it will also kind of cook itself a little bit more in the pan with it being covered.
Okay guys, so that is all for this video. I now have some yummy bread to eat. It's pretty easy. It doesn't really take that long overall. The longest part of it's really just letting it rise, honestly. I let it rise for pretty much exactly an hour, and that's the result of it. Like said, whenever it was setting, like the yeast in the water to get frothy, it didn't really froth up like it shows in the pictures for the recipe, but it still turns out great. I don't know why it doesn't froth up the way it shows it in the pictures, but I don't know, it never has when I do it, and it works just fine. I don't know if it's the temperature of the water or what, but it doesn't specify, it just says warm water, so I just put warm water. But yeah, so that was it. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more cooking videos, please let me know, and let me know what you would like me to cook or bake or whatever. Subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know every time I upload a new video. I post every Wednesday and Saturday. I hope you all have an awesome rest of your day. Bye!